When a lower league team from Luxembourg approached Carlos Teixeira to be their president, they knew he was a man who could build a football club, because he had quite literally built theirs with his own digger. The question was how to win him over, and the answer, it seems, was alcohol. This is the story of how a construction entrepreneur and his brother have taken Atert Bissen from a third-tier club to title challengers in just 3 seasons. Hello, welcome to The Sweeper, the world football podcast that brings you stories from all 211 FIFA countries and beyond. I'm Lee Wingate.
And I'm Paul Watson. And Lee, what an intro. I think you have to tell me, who is this Carlos Teixeira?
Yeah, well, let's jump straight into it. Carlos Teixeira is a former footballer who spent his entire career in Luxembourg, but he also holds dual Portuguese citizenship, which we'll go into a little bit more later. He built the football complex in Bissen with his own construction company. And at that time, he was asked by the local mayor, David Viaggi, if he would like to coach the team as well. And he said no, because he didn't want too much on his plate. He says, if I do something, I do it right. But 2 months later, Viaggi emailed him again, this time about the presidency. And in an interview with the Tageblatt newspaper, Teixeira said, "We met in a restaurant. It was my biggest mistake to agree to that meeting. After 1 or 2 bottles of wine, the world looked very different."
It does.
Yeah. And so in his first season, Atert Bissen were relegated to the 3rd division, but they then gained back-to-back promotions to reach the top tier. And although they were widely predicted to stay up this season, they were not predicted to be challenging for the title, but they are currently 2nd in the table at the winter break, only 2 points behind the reigning champions Differdange.
It's an incredible story. I love it. How have they done this though? Because obviously, if they were a team that were getting relegated, how have they suddenly managed to find the equation to go all the way up to the top like this? Is it basically just money? Have they got loads of money?
I think that's where our sort of instincts usually jump to, isn't it? And they do appear to have a decent budget, but I don't think it's just money alone that we can put their rise down to. And there are a couple of interesting reasons which really stood out to me as perhaps being quite unique to either Luxembourg or a smaller league. And they are, first of all, the ability to offer jobs. So in this same interview, Teixeira said, "I think that in Luxembourg, it's better to offer players jobs rather than lots of money. Many ex-players have understood that this is now better for their life in the long term. We have this opportunity and we use it to get good players." And I think this is basically because Luxembourg is not a fully professional league. Players need other jobs to supplement their income.
That's very interesting. I guess I hadn't considered that. We know that it happens in other leagues in Europe. You know, there are not non-professional players in top-flight leagues like, for example, San Marino. But what are players earning in Luxembourg then? What's like a normal salary for a top-flight player in Luxembourg? Do we know?
Yeah, it's quite a hard one to gauge, really. There are very different sort of numbers that you can find on the internet. One site that I found said that it could be between 55 and 70,000 euro. That seemed quite high to me, actually. There was another one. It's called footballjobs.com, football spelled F-U-T-B-O-L. And there's an advert on there at the moment, basically, that is asking or calling for players in Luxembourg, and it's saying that the wage is between 1,400 and 1,700 euro per month. So that would sort of be the sum that a semi-pro player in Luxembourg might make from football. Unfortunately for us, Paul, for you and I, you need to have an EU passport and be a minimum of 1.88 metres tall to get the job.
I actually don't know how tall that is in feet and inches, but I don't have the EU passport to start with. I think I'm shorter than that too. That's very interesting though, isn't it? I mean, one factor with Luxembourg must be that I get the impression it's one of the most expensive places to live, isn't it? It always comes out quite high in partly in earnings as well. It's one of the places where people earn the most, but I imagine you also have to have a fair amount coming in to live there. So maybe 1,400 euros per month isn't really going to do it as a full-time salary.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I don't really remember what the pricing was like on my one visit to Luxembourg, but I do remember public transport being free. I thought that was cool.
I could ride around all day.
Yeah. The second reason that I found quite interesting about Atert Bissen's rise is the coaching situation. Because when the team was struggling in the second tier in 2022 to 23, just before they got relegated, Carlos Teixeira appointed no one other than his own brother, Pedro, as the coach.
And thorough process for that recruitment role, I imagine, Lee.
Yeah. So he then oversaw back-to-back promotions to the top flight. And this is where it gets interesting, Paul. In the summer, so in last summer this would have been, just before they started in the top flight, he replaced his own brother, who had just secured back-to-back promotions, with another coach called Vitor Pereira, also Portuguese. Now, I just want a very quick side note on this. Portuguese are the largest minority in Luxembourg, which I think they make up around 15% of the population, which is why you keep hearing Portuguese coaches and executives, whatever, coming up on this story. But yeah, Paul, it seems like he I want to say sacked his own brother. His brother has stepped into a team manager role. But when I initially read that he had replaced his brother, I just had visions of them sitting down to like a Sunday family dinner and his brother sort of Alan Sugar style being like, "You're fired."
That's I've never heard that as someone having to. I mean, it does sound very much like he's pushed him upstairs, doesn't it? But that's fantastic. I've never heard that. But like also the rapidity with which this club have gone up and up. I can't remember any other clubs like this except for maybe Ludogorets. You remember in Bulgaria that they were this tiny little club that I think at one time were called Antibiotic Ludogorets, which is
what a name.
Amongst the best names. And that they never in the top flight had a normal season. They sort of went up to top flight and immediately won the double. So they had this weird rise where they just kind of got huge immediately. But I can't think of any other club that have done that, third tier to top and then actually gone on to win it.
Yeah, it's extremely rare in football. According to our friends at RSSF, they are all in Asia, the other clubs that have done it. There's 3. So Muangthong United in Thailand, and then 2 from Nepal, which I found quite interesting. Manang Marshiyangdi Club in Nepal, and Church Boys United in Nepal quite recently from 2021 to 2023. So it's a pretty rare feat, and obviously it's a big ask to go from third tier to winning the national title in consecutive seasons. But Atert Bissen could potentially do it this season, Paul. And I wonder, will we find ourselves in a sleepy town in Luxembourg for European qualifiers this summer?
It sounds like exactly the kind of thing we might find ourselves doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe we'll even get a glass of wine and a ride on the digger. I actually had a look for things to do in Bissen, by the way, and they do have a great steel factory, so that's my birthday sorted. That's what it's most famous for, yeah.
Go with your famous concrete factory tour, right? Was it a concrete factory that you had a sort of an amazing tour to one once?
Yeah, long-term listeners may remember that a Czech friend took me to a concrete factory in Ostrava as a surprise birthday celebration, and it was underwhelming, to say the least. I just want to thank Benzer from Luxembourg Footy for his help researching this story. We would not have found it without him. So thanks very much, Benzer. The Netherlands are up next, Paul. And in the Netherlands, one of the clubs participating in the KNVB Cup have already guaranteed themselves a trophy, even though the final is months away.
Yes. Now, would this be the Treffers with their heroic run?
Yes, it would be, the Treffers, whose name literally translates to the goals, by the way. I love that. They're a third-tier amateur team from a town on the Dutch-German border. And in the next round of the Cup, which takes place, annoyingly, between the time of recording and the release of this episode, so we can't tell you the result yet, they have a spicy local derby against high-flying NEC Nijmegen, who are currently 4th in the Eredivisie. So you would expect them to lose. But even if they do, Paul, the players will already know that they have written themselves into history by winning the inaugural Blue Cup. Now, in the summer, the Dutch FA decided to introduce the Blue Cup, which is awarded to the best performing amateur team in the national cup competition. So the KNVB Beker, the Dutch Cup, the trophy is colloquially known as the Dennenappel, the pine cone. And this new trophy is the same shape, but blue, It's the blue pine cone.
I love it. I'd love to win the blue pine cone. No, I really like that idea of giving them a sort of an award. I mean, this is if they don't win the actual cup, I suppose, right? I mean, or maybe they win both. If they actually go all the way and win the final, I suppose they win both. They have to lift 2 pine cones. But yeah, really great idea. Is it right to think that they can't be promoted, right? They're in the 3rd tier, and there's something that happens in the Netherlands where you actually can't get promoted from there.
Yeah, you almost can't. It's really weird. So they're currently in the Tweede Divisie, the Treffers. So that's the Dutch, as you say, 3rd tier. But the promotion is extremely rare because there are a series of crazily strict conditions that need to be met. Basically, they are as follows. They need to have played in the 3rd tier for at least 3 seasons, meet the licensing criteria, have a good youth academy, declare their intention to go up before the season, finish top, and hope for a vacancy in the 2nd tier.
Yeah, and you did mention there, I think one of the caveats there is you said that they have to want to be promoted, and that always sounds quite weird. You know, why would you not want to? But there are probably quite a few clubs who don't, are there, for their own sort of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, that happens quite a lot here in Austria, and it's mostly due to financial infrastructural reasons that they don't fulfill the requirements. But I find it quite interesting that you have to state before the season if you want to go up, because imagine you're having a great season, you know there is a vacancy, but you didn't declare your intention for promotion before the season because perhaps like Atert Bissen you didn't think that you had any chance of it, and then you technically wouldn't fulfill the criteria.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought of it that way. Actually, I was worried about it the other way round, but I guess you may not fulfil the criteria anyway. But I thought, what if you're a team that are being promoted, you're in line to be promoted, and you never thought that was going to happen, and you don't want to be, then you'd start sort of maybe starting to lose matches. But I suppose that couldn't happen anyway because you know this system, you're not going up. I think that makes a lot of sense, really.
There are other reasons why teams don't really tend to go up from the Dutch 3rd tier, and some of them are simply the fact that, well, they like being semi-pro and amateur. They like playing their games on Saturdays rather than Mondays and Fridays, which is when the 2nd tier often takes place, which is a reason that I think as an English football fan that's a bit hard to get your head around. They don't want to play on certain days of the week. Sometimes that is even for religious reasons. So some clubs don't want to play on Saturdays. Some clubs don't want to play on Sundays. And you may remember the famous story of the amateur team Spakenburg, who went on a Dutch Cup run to the semi-finals in 2023. And basically, there was all of this stuff online because Spakenburg come from a town in the Dutch Bible Belt, and they said that if they got to the final, they would not be able to play on the scheduled date of Sunday, the 30th of April, because they don't play on Sundays. So, I mean, ultimately, it wasn't a problem because Spakenburg lost to PSV Eindhoven. But can you imagine if the Dutch FA had refused to reschedule the fixture and Spakenburg simply didn't turn up, which they wouldn't have done?
Yeah, that would be an embarrassing way for the tournament to peter out, wouldn't it? These things do happen every now and again. I remember we covered a player on the pod. I cannot remember who the player was, whose career in Europe had sort of just faded out. They'd moved over to South America. And the reason behind that was, I think, because the player was a Seventh-day Adventist, which meant he couldn't play on Saturdays. And I think that had basically just meant that a career in Europe was pretty much untenable at a high level.
Yeah, wasn't it the former Argentina goalkeeper Carlos Teixeira, I think?
Oh, that might be it. Yeah. I mean, you just couldn't really do it in Europe, could you? If you were not allowed to play football on Saturdays, I don't know how you'd manage to make that work.
Yeah. In the case of Spakenburg, by the way, their coach, Chris de Graaf, said that if they won their semi-final back in 2023, he would be, in quotes, handing in my gear. This is good as it's going to get. Winning the final would not be realistic. That's the spirit that you want, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, also, what's handing in my gear? Is that a euphemism for something? How do you mean? As in he's going to resign just before the final?
Yeah.
Very weird approach to a final, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to win that. I've got to quit. Never heard anyone react like that.
I mean, especially if you can get all the way to the final, you would surely believe, okay, we can win one more game. So, yeah. This is not, by the way, the only country that rewards its best performing amateur team in the National Cup competition. There's an example in Hungary. This dates back to the 1960s. The trophy was initially named after a newspaper, and basically the best two amateur teams in the cup will then play against each other in a final for a trophy, and the winner will also get sports equipment. So there's one in Hungary. In the US, apparently, the best performing amateur team in the US Open Cup gets, I think it's $25,000, something like that. And in Slovakia, there's a €3,000 prize for the best performing amateur team. So it's not unique to the Netherlands, but somehow the blue pine cone feels a bit special.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Doesn't Germany also have a game where they have the amateur cup final ahead of the actual Pokal final, right? Because wasn't there a problem that, was it Arminia Bielefeld had almost got to the final of the actual Pokal, and so they looked like they could be playing in both back-to-back or something like that?
No, I think that was the regional cup final. They have like regional cup finals, which the big teams, like the top two tiers, don't compete in. And I think they'd got to their regional cup final, and they have like a big cup final weekend where all the regional cup finals take place, and then the main one takes place in the evening. And that was the problem, I think.
They could have ended up playing on their regional cup final and then the actual cup final.
Back to back. Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. But yeah, I love that whole blue pine cone idea, and I do think like celebrating for these clubs, it's lovely because it is basically as good as it'll ever get for them. So I love it. Big moment for them.
One final note is that if the Treffers did happen to reach the cup final, the presentation of the blue pine cone takes place at half time in the KNVB Cup final. So imagine like they're attending. Basically, the premise for this is they're not expected to reach the cup final, but they can then attend the cup final as guests and come on at half time. Imagine if they're actually involved and the coach wants to take them down the tunnel for a half-time team talk, but they've got to go and get the blue pine cone.
Now, that will be a first, surely. A team in a cup final being presented with the trophy or a trophy at half-time. That surely has never happened.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps it has. If anyone's going to know, it's our listeners, but I can't think of an example of that. We have to thank our Dutch Patreon supporter Jake for his help putting this segment together. He was very helpful explaining the precise criteria that needed to be fulfilled for promotion from the third tier. So thank you, Jake. We have another story from Belgium still to come, and it's a juicy one that involves an angry dad and an Iraqi investor. But before we get onto that, we've got some major pod news. Paul, do you want to tell the listeners what it is?
Very excited to say we've gone full time on the sweeper. We have got rid of our day jobs and we are just focusing on this podcast. And that's going to mean some changes for the show, which are all exciting and good ones, in my opinion. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that later. And we're going to give you some sneak previews as well.
Yeah, so stick around to the end to hear all about that. But finally, up today, Belgium. Now, you may remember from a podcast not so long ago, I think it was just before Christmas, that we talked about how hard it is as a coach to hold on to a job in Belgium these days. Because except for the two promoted clubs, every team in Belgium's Jupiler Pro League fired their coach in 2025. You may remember me saying at the time Belgium wouldn't be the country I would most associate with coaching chaos. It would be Romania. Well, thanks to JLL PTRS on our Discord server, we've now got the perfect story that brings both countries together. At second tier, Olympic Charleroi. Have you heard about their absolute barminess, Paul?
No, I've got to hear more about this one, Lee.
So, they are on their fifth coach of the season, although technically the current interim has served 2 spells. His name is Najib Abdelli. He's back for his second stint. He replaced Arnaud Mercier, who was reportedly sacked for not playing Romanian owner Claudio Floritsa's son, Luca. It's just a classic of the genre, isn't it?
It's incredible how many of these we get, isn't it? Like these coaches being sacked. I think we had one in Italy fairly recently. Coach being sacked for not playing the owner's son. It's
Tanana, I think.
Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So he was only in charge for 6 weeks, and yet in that short spell, he guided the club to their first 2 league wins of the season. But during their 4-3 win against the Henk reserves, he left striker Luca Floritsa on the bench for the full 90 minutes. I think it was the first time, actually, that Floritsa hadn't played all season. he was then fired, but to make matters worse, the club released a statement saying that there was a difference of vision and both parties felt it was best to part ways, which Mercier apparently read on social media.
It starts sounding like a hostage situation more than anything else, doesn't it? Oh, crazy.
Yeah. Imagine reading that your vision is different, but you read it on like Twitter or is it? Do I have a different vision? Okay. According to Roman Molina, who is an excellent investigative journalist in football, an Iraqi investor is also interested in investing in Olympic Charleroi on the condition that he gets a place in the starting lineup. So, as if there wasn't already enough pressure on the coaches at Olympic Charleroi, this 30-year-old player, Abdullah Hamid, who is an actual footballer who has played as a forward for a range of clubs across Europe, is now wanting to invest, but only if he can play. I guess if that happens, Paul, there's not going to be any say on the strike partnership, is it? It's going to be Luka Floritzer and Abdullah Hamid very much locked in for every single game.
Yeah, they might as well get their team sheets printed for each game with those two just already filled in, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what coach would want to operate like that, right? You'll struggle to find a coach who'd say, okay, so I don't get to choose either of my strikers. You know, it's incredible situation.
Yeah, bizarre. And no surprises, they are currently right down the bottom of Belgium's second tier at the moment. So, yeah, things aren't looking good at Olympic Charleroi. Before we round off the Belgium segment, I just want to give a quick shout out also to La Louvière, one of those two Jupiler Pro League clubs that haven't sacked their coach last year. They had a very special result of the weekend. They came from 2-0 down to beat Club Brugge 3-2. And this is the culmination of a decade of an incredible rise as well. So La Louvière in 2017 were in the 5th tier. Now they're in the Pro League and coming from behind to beat Club Brugge. So I thought that to end on a positive note, I just wanted to give them a shout out because that is one hell of a rise.
Yeah, that really is. Yeah, nice to end on a positive note in Belgium. It's not all chaos. It's not all coaching chaos and weirdness.
Yes, agreed. All right, Paul. We announced earlier that we've quit our jobs and gone full-time on the sweeper. What does this mean for the listeners?
Right, well, we're going back to weekly podcasts. We did that for a period in the past. It didn't work at that time, but now we're going to do this slightly differently. They're going to be shorter podcasts that go out at the usual time late on a Tuesday night, and then our Patreon supporters will get exclusive bonus podcasts every week now on a Thursday evening.
Yeah, so 2 pods a week if you're with us on Patreon. And this week is an Australia special coming out on Thursday evening. Here is a very short taster of what you can expect in that episode.
So in an Instagram post, Josh Cavallo has accused Adelaide United of benching him while he was at the club due to internal homophobia. He put out a statement that said, "Decisions were made by people in power that blocked my opportunities, not because of my talent, but because of who I choose to love. This was exactly the fear I had about coming out. For the first time, I had questioned if I should have kept my sexuality a secret." And this was obviously has been a real bombshell in Australian football. Cavallo was, for a while, when he was the first male footballer to come out as gay while playing in a top-tier league, as we mentioned in the intro, was met with waves of support. It seemed like a very positive story. So for it to end in this way has certainly rocked Australian football, I think.
Yeah, and it's such a shame. I remember seeing photos. I think he proposed to his partner even on the pitch at Adelaide United, didn't he, if I remember that correctly? So the fact that it's come to this right now is an extremely sad development. If you like the sound of that, Patreon is still the best way to support us, and it makes a bigger difference now than ever. So join us at patreon.com/sweeperpod. We've got a lot of blogs out at the moment as well, because we've got more time to do them. So we've got blogs about the most surprising leagues in Europe, fun facts about the 55 UEFA nations, crazy future stadiums, all sorts of stuff. But there is, in addition to Patreon, Paul, another way that the listeners can help us out too, isn't there?
Yeah, just let other people know about the pod if you think they might like it. It's actually probably the biggest way that we grow is from people who listen to the pod regularly, recommending it to others who they think might enjoy it. And that does a huge amount for us. We don't have mass marketing budgets. We're not in a big group that publicises us. So yeah, please do spread the word on social media and wherever else. And also just, it does make quite a big difference if you do have time to leave us a review as well.
Yeah. So please do leave us a review, write to your friends on WhatsApp, send them a link to the pod, tell them an episode you enjoyed. That will all make a very big difference. We're going to leave it there for today, though. We hope you enjoyed this Benelux special, and we look forward to bringing you more world football stories again very soon.